Well, good evening, everybody. We're on part two of this great interview. Tommy Ring is a dear friend, and God bless him. He's done so many things. And talking about leaving a life imprint, a legacy story that lives beyond your lifetime. That's what Tommy and I have been talking about in our private times. With our own families, is we want to leave something that matters, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Not just live, but live something that not only blesses our family, but maybe there's our story can somehow help somebody else. And Tommy's been willing to do that. And one of his stories is just amazing. He shared a little bit this last session that we had last week. He basically said, "Hey, I want to tell you about some of the things I'm doing, Kenny, and then I want to show you some of the cars I've been working on. He's just gonna go around, and we're in the middle of his shop, and you got all these great hot rods that are older hot rods, which is that's the real mystique about it, and just the real cool part is it. And so I want him to talk a little bit about what he does, but I want him to tell you what we're looking at right now. You can't see, but hopefully we'll be able to get some pictures and add it to the YouTube that'll be coming out this next week. But anyways, go ahead and Tommy, and welcome. And by the way, thank you for giving to my mom. Oh, just threw the book at him. Thank you for giving to this organization. We help our veterans of war and people who are disabled, and so that's what we use the money for. So if you want to continue to give, my mom, the book is actually dedicated to her, so that you're honoring her. All right, brother. So tell us about what we got here in the middle of this beautiful garage.
Well, this is a crazy shop. It's you can't see it, but it's major psychedelic. It's just crazy from bone to bone. But it's everything is in a circle, and in the middle of that circle is a 6-foot chandelier, and there's a bright red grand piano with yellow flame jobs. That tells you how bizarre it is. The cars are a 34 Austin. Next to that is a 67 Volkswagen. Next to that, 28 Ford truck. Next to that, 48 Ford truck. Then a 41 Chevy truck. I'm having a look. Then a 27 Ford Roadster. And beside that is a 31 Chevy. Beside that is a 28 Ford. And beside that is a 41 Ford. I don't think your camera will get that far, but somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And then there's a 29 Studebaker and a 29 Ford in pieces that I'm putting together as we speak. So anyway, it's just, it's crazy. When I wrote for magazines, I started out with Rat Rod magazine, then I started writing for Street Muscle and also Rod Authority. And the rule was that you couldn't duplicate cars.
Yeah.
So I was building 3 different cars at one time. So I built 25 cars in the last 9 years, and these 12, 13 that you see here are the remnants of the ones I wanted to keep, or some that I never finished.
How difficult is that to take these older vehicles and even find parts, right?
Well, it's not as hard as you think.
Oh, okay.
It's just there's outlets for that, and I've done so many of them now. I really could do them in my sleep. It's just you get a formula, you know how they go, how they put together.
Yeah.
I'll get them in basket cases, or I'll just find a body and then start build a frame and go from there.
Put the engine in and all that.
And all that.
Wow.
And
Wow.
the story on the piano is that I'm really excited about. My crowd is, rat rods are different than street rods. Rat rods start in California. It's the young bucks because you can't afford a $120,000 car. But the rat rods you can put together fairly cheap.
Okay.
So my crowd is 20 to 30, rough. Most have never been in church, don't know anything about God.
Yep.
Everything starts with GD and ends with F. I mean, that's the way they talk. So that's been my crowd since 2009. And I thought, I won a lot of people not by hammering them, because I didn't like that. I wouldn't go listen. Why would I think they would?
Sure.
I won them by mentoring them in cars, and then once I win them that way, they want to know how to do this. I built a car literally from scratch, from building the frame. Well, what kid don't want to know how to do that?
How did they do that? I mean, are you doing that virtually on a camera, or are they calling you or videoing?
Well, through the magazines,
okay.
I would do it issue by issue.
Okay.
And then I've got a 3.5-hour DVD that tells you how to do that. It shows I start with this. Matter of fact, that Roadster over there. Start with that. Frame on the ground. Setting the rear end, setting the front end, setting the whole thing, motor and the
Step
body.
by step.
Step by step.
You're
They can follow it and literally build a hot rod.
Yeah.
2.5 hours of watching that. They could, if they got a welder and know how to weld, they can build a hot rod.
I could speak to Tommy's. He's so excited because I'll tell you what, he is one of the most unique persons I've ever met. And you talk to all our friends, and we'll tell you the same thing. Tommy, what you see is what you get. You're not going to get anything more genuine than who this guy is.
Which could be bad.
Yeah. I have to talk to Kerry about the other part. But anyway, no, the guy is just something. He says and does things that the rest of us probably would never do, but we think about doing. And that's why I love that about Tom. And that's why God, I think, had you that Damascus Road experience out in the middle of the cold weather, almost froze your hindy off. But it was things like that God knew it would take a Damascus kind of road experience for you, right?
It did.
And that caused you to be a little radical, right?
Mm-hmm. Very radical.
And so, I think that's what's encouraging about you when you're trying to deal with these 20 and 30-year-olds or 40 years or whatever. They're looking for some guy that's not cookie cutter. Yeah. They're looking for somebody who's for real, right? Yeah. They'll see right through it if you're not. Right?
And it's funny, I don't ever say anything until they get close enough that I can, but I don't say anything. But I can go to a big, huge car show, and there'll be 30 dudes partying and drinking and smoking dope, and they love on me. Man, come over here, and they'll be hugging on me and everything. And if somebody says you want to drink, they'll stop them right there and say, well, don't do that. He don't do that. Or don't say that in front of him or something. And I'm not prompting anything.
Right. Yeah, that's still conviction. God still convicts us even though we might not be in a relationship with him.
So that on that thought, I'm sitting one morning on the pot and flipping on my phone, and I saw this girl sitting at a piano with just a cheap, chintzy, I mean, you could just see her, and she wasn't very attractive. But she had all these followers, and I thought, wow. And God planned in my heart and said, if you would put a red grand piano in your shop under that 6-foot chandelier and do one song, one scripture, and a 3 to 5 minute talk, he said, I'll bless that and call it the Hot Rod Church. Wow. Call my piano tuner. He said, I've got a piano, come get it right now. Wow. Call Vern Morris. Vern is a great painter. Yeah. He said, I'll custom paint that piano, which he did. Put the red flames on, the red piano with a yellow flame.
You guys, we'll take pictures of this. This is unbelievable.
And it just, everything starts snowballing. So, got a guy's doing my logo, coolest logo you've ever seen. It's like an old abandoned gas station with a steeple, hot rods all over, the Hot Rod Church.
Oh my goodness.
So, we'll get into this, but the network that I'm guest on right now came in to film. And the first question they said was, why in the world have you got a piano in the middle of a hot rod shop? And I said, well, let me tell you about that. And they're filming this. So I'm able to tell them what it is I'm doing. I'm going to start this church, Hot Rod Church. Here's who it's to. And they caught that on film. You would never get that opportunity.
No.
Never. Not with a major network like this is. Mm-hmm. But it's just another piece of the puzzle, that God's told me where I'm going.
That's awesome. So, what are some of the opportunities you think this is going to lead to? I mean, do you have any idea?
I really think I can only go by what this is a whole nother story. We don't have time, but I had a bladder disease 5 years. I really didn't think I was going to live. They gave me up, said we can't do anything. It got so bad that I tried to hang myself out there one night. I mean, it was that serious. Wow. I just had given up. I thought there's no hope. Yeah. And in the middle of that, all that pain and anguish that I went through for 5 years, God kept telling me, I'm going to raise you up in 4 areas. And I thought, this is insanity. When the disease was going on, I didn't own a hot rod. Did not own one. Yeah. And he said, I'm going to raise you up in hot rods, music, TV, and movies. And I thought, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I don't even own a hot rod. Mm. Then Ronnie said, well, his daddy, Marty Robb, said, well, he's got a 33 Plymouth, man, that he discarded. We dug it out, started building on it. And that led to a magazine gig, right for a magazine. So there was the hot rod. Yeah. The music thing is coming on right now really strong. I had a project come out last year. I've got two. One's going to come out in March or April, one in July.
Yeah.
One's a country project, one's rock and roll. There's the music. Then we just got through filming for TV, one of the major networks. So there's TV. That only leaves movies.
Yeah.
And I feel like God is absolutely, He confirmed it with 4 different prophecies. 2 was from guys at Christ Church. Another was a musician. And then we went to some good friends, Ken and Lisa's one night, and they had a prophetess there from Dallas, which I thought, I don't believe this. But she read my mail. And she didn't know anything about me at all. And she said, God, and I had looked a hole through her because I thought if she's fake, she's going to know that I've got her number. Well, she had my number instead, and she said, God has raised you up in these areas. She said, don't let anybody put you in one area. You weren't called to that. You're called to 4 different areas.
Wow.
And she nailed it, and she'd never known me. So I know that's where I'm headed. Wow. 3 of those are fulfilled as we're speaking right now. That only leaves movies. I can't imagine how, but I know God will do it. He's doing all these other things.
You wrote a song called Route 99. What was that? What was that about? Because that so intrigued me, that song. Maybe you can tell the audience, because he does have. He can show you where to get his videos or CDs or whatever. But what was that about?
That story is the story of Joey and Rory Feet, which are country singers, and
yes,
great Christian girl.
Yeah.
Joey was
right, and
she died of cancer. Well, backing up to when they met, they found a farm on Highway 99. That's the name of the song, Highway 99.
Wow. And
she loved that farm. She lived for the farm.
Yeah.
Anytime they went on the road singing, she was working that farm. So it's just the story of that and how she loved that. And then it doesn't give the idea away that she dies until the bridge. You just think that she's left him for whatever reason.
Right. Well, that's so inspiring. I would love for them to hear you sing that. I don't know if you can do it now, but we would definitely like to hear that.
Yeah, at some point I could.
Yeah. Okay. But anyways, I'm just so amazed at how you have intertwined both your country music and the gospel music that God's given you. The songs the Lord's given you, and you're now starting to live out, that legacy that God talked to you about when you're just so young.
Yeah,
right.
And even when I was laying with my face in that gravel bed, I'm going to take you to the world. That's exactly where I'm headed.
Yeah. Well, and it's really great because when you go through life and you get in your 50s, your 60s, sometimes you think, "Wow, my life's over," right? Mm-hmm. Right. That's just a crock from the enemy, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just want to encourage those that are listening to us right now. I just want you to hear his story and realize that if he can do it for Tom, he can do it for me. Whatever. God's blessed me immensely in so many ways, but I didn't see that when I first started out with my company in my garage, and that was my first office. My wife right when was happy, but it ended up being throughout the whole state of Tennessee and helped hundreds of thousands of kids and families. And I don't brag about that. I'm just saying I didn't see that, but God saw it, in me. And the same thing with you. Yeah. And I think for those that are struggling, maybe they're having that Damascus Road experience, and they're just having to pick up this off YouTube and realize, if it can happen to this guy, maybe it can happen to me.
Yeah.
Right.
And it didn't happen overnight. People think of if I don't make it by 30, if I don't make it by 40, if I don't make it by 50. Well, I'm 70 now. Yeah. And it's like life is just now beginning. I've had a great life, but it's really kicking into high gear. I don't have a spare minute. I mean, between the music and the hot rod and TV and all these things, it's just like, it's blowing up. Yeah. And, my daddy lived to be 97. I feel like God will give me longer than that. Yeah. Well, that scripture, for I know the steps I have for you. Yes. Says the Lord. Yeah. He has something planned for each of us. Yeah. But we give up sometimes on our story if we're not careful. Yeah. Because the enemy of our soul is good, and we're good at it. Oh, he's very good. I mean, the Bible says he seeks to kill, steal, and destroy all that we are. But God is greater. Mine almost ended with a rope, literally right there on that bench. And what happened was, the doctors had, I was
Giving
in
up on
so
you?
much pain, and I couldn't get any help anywhere. No, I went to 10 different specialists, some of the best, 3 in Memphis and 7 here in Nashville. And I was in so much pain. I was passing blood. I was just, I couldn't sleep. I was in such intense pain. This was in the 5th year. And one night I thought, I was going to turn in front of a semi. I kept trying to do that. Just for some reason that didn't work. So I got home and cut a piece of rope, and I thought, I'm going to end it tonight. And I looked at the wall clock in the shop, and it said 11:30. And for some reason I thought, oh, I'm set up. I've got my rope. I'm set. I'll do this in the morning. And when I woke up that morning, the story broke about Robin Williams had just killed himself. And something hit me like a ton of bricks, and I thought, I can't, And I told my wife, I said, this is what I was going to do. And she said, we got to get you some help. I said, we've been trying to get me help for 5 years, and it hadn't worked yet. So that weekend was our church picnic, and I thought, I'm not going to that. I'm in so much pain. But I went anyway, not because I want to, because I had a wife that's a bulldog. Got there, and I thought, this is ridiculous. I couldn't go more than 5 minutes to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom. I'm coming out. Gary Lund's wife, June, who grew up with Carrie as kids, was coming out, and she said, how you doing? And it was the wrong thing to say to me. And I said, not good. And I unloaded. And she said, you do realize 11 years ago I was given up with cancer and only given a very short time to live. And let me tell you about this man in Alabama, blah, 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 as a nutritionist. And long story short, that story led me to this doctor, and he said, if you'll do what I tell you, I'll have you healed in 6 months. And he was exactly right.
Wow.
He had the formula. He had been
So you're better.
Oh, I'm well, healed. They can't find that I ever had it.
Wow.
And every time they would scope me, they said, your bladder is so diseased, it's the size of a walnut, it's totally black, and there's nothing, we can't do anything, it's gone too far.
Well, I feel so encouraged just by, we weren't for sure if we could get this thing off tonight because of technical issues, but thank God, the Lord knows why. But I am just so honored to be with you, my friend. And it's great that you're sharing this because it's an imprint. What we're just got through doing, it's an imprint that people can learn from, grow from, and say, if it can happen to this guy, healing, direction, God's purpose, it can happen to me.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to let him finish out with a song. I don't care what he wants to sing. But, it is an amazing, great story, Tommy's life, and what God's done through him. And he can do it for you. And I want to encourage you to, as we, share with these. I mean, we've seen former NFL players. We see people that's been George Bush's administration. And I love this. I mean, with Tommy, God's doing something great with him. And that's what this whole podcast is about, is to go out and hear people's story and see what their story is. And maybe one of these stories is just what you've been praying for and thinking about. And it'd be an imprint that you'll leave with your kids, your grandkids, and your great-grandkids. And that's what it's all about, leaving your life imprint. So God bless. I'm going to let him close us out. Tommy, thank you again for all that you shared tonight, and it's a blessing. All right.
I'll try.
All right, brother.
Let me get my big foot in here.
You can do it.
How about an old standby?
All right.
When I think of how he came so far from glory, came and dwelt among the lowly, such as I. Suffer shame and such disgrace. On Mount Calvary, take my place. wonder just what I could have done to deserve God's only Son to fight my battles until all are won. Who am I? And who am I that a king would bleed and die for? And who am I that he would pray, not my will but thine for? The answers I may never know. That's why he came to love me so. That to an old rugged cross he would go. Who am I? And who am I?
God bless y'all. We'll see you next week. God bless y'all. Thank you,
Love
Tommy.
y'all. Yeah, man.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching the show. If you guys have any questions or if you would like to donate and receive the book, please head on over to kennymuck.org/show. Here you can ask us any questions that you might have as well as make a donation. Thank you so much for watching.